Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson is so eminently qualified to be a Supreme Court justice that some Republican senators really had to stretch the truth to try to criticize her, like Josh Hawley of Missouri, who tried to smear Judge Jackson over her past sentences for child porn offenders.
A few things that I'm concerned about, aspects of your record that trouble me. 7 cases that represent, as near as we can tell, all of Judge Jackson's cases dealing with child pornography from her time on the district court. The defendant possessed dozens of images of child pornography and distributed dozens of images of child pornography. Prosecutor recommended 72 months. Judge Jackson gave the defendant 60 months, which was the lowest sentence permitted by the law.
So Hawley is suggesting that Jackson has gone easy on child porn, which he may think will grab headlines and turn the public against her. There is just one problem, though. He's completely misrepresenting the facts because other federal judges have also imposed lighter sentences than sentencing guidelines, including some that Hawley voted to confirm. Even the conservative National Review today slammed Hawley's attacks as, quote, disingenuous. And I flagged that this morning because I was like, wow, even the National Review is calling him out. Joining us now are Mark Joseph Stern, staff writer for Slate. Also with us, Elie Mystal, justice correspondent for The Nation. Elie, let me start with you. What are your takeaways from the hearing today and the GOP senators' opening statements and their lines of attack?
Yeah, they don't really have anything substantive against the nominee. If you actually read her cases, her decisions are very mainstream, maybe a little left-leaning, but still kind of main center mass of where we are in America. They don't have substances of attacks, so all they can do is gin up this kind of nonsense about her record in a few cases that we're seeing from Hawley and we're seeing from Marsha Blackburn. The facts of her positions on sentencing child pornographers is that she sentences them to jail for a very long time. The difference here is that our sentencing guidelines for child porn are even higher than a lot of people think they should be. I personally am not one of those people. I'm very carceral when it comes to sentencing child pornographers, and yet I don't see a huge difference between where I am and where Judge Jackson has been throughout her career. If they were willing to get into the nuances of that, I think that would be made more obvious, but Hawley's not interested in nuance. He's interested in riling up the QAnon crazies. And the last thing I'll just remind people of is that Ketanji Brown Jackson actually sentenced the Pizzagate guy. So the actual violent terrorist who came at people over these child pornography things, it is Ketanji Brown Jackson who put him in jail for 4 years.
That is a fun fact. Thank you for sharing today. Mark, in terms of the lines of attack you heard from Republicans today, I was talking with Jeffrey Rosen about this idea that, they want to, folks who are interpreting the Constitution in its original text, and I always find that interesting as a Black woman. But in terms of that idea that the court is becoming too activist and we want people to read the original text, how did that land with what's looming out here in the real Supreme Court, in the real world?
Well, it's just so incredibly difficult to take those arguments seriously from Republican senators when we have a Supreme Court today that has embraced living constitutionalism to a radical and unprecedented degree. I mean, this court has, under the banner of originalism, made up vast new swaths of law with absolutely no roots in the original public meaning of the Constitution. I'm thinking about decisions expanding the right to bear arms, decisions hobbling public sector unions, decisions striking down civil rights laws, all kinds of decisions that at times the court will even admit are not complying with the original meaning of the Constitution, but do follow the majority's ideological and political preferences. So, I think it would be great if Judge Jackson could say, well, unlike the current 6 conservative justices, I will take the written text of the Constitution seriously. I will take the original public meaning seriously. I will not start from my conclusion and then formulate a laughably nonsensical pseudo-historical claim to make it seem like my political beliefs are rooted in American tradition and history. Of course, she's not going to do that, but it would be a very satisfying moment for Elie and me and a lot of other lawyers. universe.
Man, it would be satisfying if somebody did that at one of these hearings. I wanted to do it. I was yelling at the TV today, Ellie, because I was like, you're going to sit in front of a black woman and say, we really all should abide by the original text of the Constitution.
And act
a black
like
woman. You realize you're talking to a black woman.
And act like the rights that we have now are made up. I mean, that's Tom Cotton's actual argument. But here's the other thing, Zerlina. Like, look, today was not the day for this. Today was the day for opening statements. When we get into it, I'm going to need Democrats to step up to the plate and defend this person. If you notice, Republicans are still litigating the Brett Kavanaugh situation, right? Still litigating the alleged attempted rapist and making some kind of connection to the treatment that he received and the treatment that they are going to go above and beyond to give to Judge Jackson. I need Democrats to have that same kind of energy and to not let these smears, these pedophile smears slide, to not give Republicans an inch. And I didn't exactly see all of that fire today. It was still today, even in these opening statements, we saw Republicans on the attack and Democrats in the kind of like, oh, your bio, it's so awesome. Like, I want them to hit back. And tomorrow is going to be the Democrats' opportunity to really hit back at their colleagues and defend this woman like Republicans have defended alleged attempted rapist Brett Kavanaugh and alleged sexual harasser Clarence Thomas in the past.
I mean, I think one of the things I thought of today, Ellie, is the fact that Republicans, they want you to remember that there were protesters at Brett Kavanaugh's hearing. They don't want you to remember the testimony of Christine Blasey Ford. They don't want you to remember that. And that was the most important part for me that I won't forget. So I wanted to make that point. Mark, we heard lots of Republican buzzwords today, including critical race theory, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Supreme Court at all whatsoever. So I don't know why they brought it up. Is this just Republicans practicing their pitches for their midterm elections commercials? I feel like Senators Josh Hawley, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, they just want to run for president. And so this was them cutting their ads so that they can fundraise and do that, right?
Absolutely. It's basically a Fox News audition reel, a midterm ad reel, just a kind of warm up for the midterm season that we're about to enter, when every Republican will be falling over themselves to try to prove that they took the hardest thwack at Ketanji Brown Jackson. They are trying to make her seem scary. They are trying to make her seem soft on crime, soft on pedophiles. They don't have one particularly coherent or cohesive line of attack. So they're throwing it all against the wall and figuring at the end of the day, they can just cut some pretty decent clips for attack ads down the road. It's not an effective way to keep Jackson off the Supreme Court. And I think they know that. You don't really see a lot of ambition among the Republicans to really keep this woman from getting confirmed. Instead, you see a desire to grandstand, a desire to make these ridiculous speeches and accusations, a desire to use this as a moment in the sun to try to build your own brand. I mean, Ted Cruz was hawking his podcast during today's hearings. This is barely even about Jackson at moments like that. And I think it's probably a bit of a relief for her because she gets to take a time out and just have a moment of zen. But it's pretty embarrassing for the rest of them to watch them just do brand building when they're supposed to be questioning a Supreme Court nominee.
That was a moment. And I have to say, I have a lot of questions for the folks seeking out Ted Cruz's podcast. I just have questions. I have a list. I have a whole list of questions as to what you are doing with your life choices.
There aren't a lot of podcasts you can get in Cancun about the politics, though, so I understand.
That's funny. So, Ellie, another Republican senator, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, who actually started off the statements on the Republican side. He's a ranking member. He slammed far left groups, excuse me. See, I'm so used to saying it. Far left dark money groups and their role in the judicial selection process. I mean, fact check this for us, because he specifically called out Demand Justice, which is like 5 minutes old. So what is your response to that as someone affiliated with them?
Yeah, so I'm a board member of Demand Justice, and I just want to say very clear, I did not get to pick the nominee. I've never met her. We don't hang out. I mean, I know it's hard for Republicans to understand this sometimes, but like Black people do not all hang out in the same barbecue. We all know each other. Yeah, so Demand Justice did not pick this nominee. From my part, I think this is a good nominee. I think this was a good pick. Obviously, I think that for a long time, Ketanji Brown Jackson has been the front runner to replace Stephen Breyer, having clerked for Breyer and having been seriously vetted for the position that eventually went to Merrick Garland. So it's no big surprise that she's there. The thought that Demand Justice picked this woman is ridiculous. And trust me, I know that because the Federalist Society picks Republican judges. I would love for us to have that kind of, the kind of power within the Democratic Party to be like, we're going to nominate this person and not that person. That would be great, but we don't have that power. The FedSoc does on their side. So really what Grassley is doing is what the kids call projecting.
That is what you call that. I mean, I found it amusing only because it's almost like, yeah, the left wishes they could do what you're accusing them of being able to do when you guys are the ones who do it all the time. Like, just with the last pick, we just did this. Mark Joseph Stern and Elie Mystal, thank you so much for being here. Great to have you both for this analysis. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.